Hello and welcome to yet another tutorial by Davies Media Design. My name is Michael Davies, and in today's tutorial I'm going to show you guys how to create an animated AdWords ad using GIMP. This is version GIMP 2.10.6, which at the time of this tutorial is the latest version of GIMP. But of course, before we get into that, I want to direct you guys over to my website at daviesmediadesign.com. As always, we have tons of GIMP video and text tutorials on here, as well as Project Translate. You can watch one of our GIMP playlists, support us on Patreon, or view our Poll of the Week results, so definitely check that out. You can also enroll in our latest GIMP School live online presentation by visiting gimpschool.com. And as always, I'll include a discount code in the description of the video. You can enroll in our GIMP photo editing course from beginner to pro photo retoucher on Udemy. And you can support us on Patreon and help our channel grow, and of course I'll include a link to this as well as all the relevant links from this tutorial in the description of the video. Alright, so for today's tutorial we're going to be creating one of the more popular ad sizes for Google AdWords display ads, and this is a 300 by 600 half-page ad. And basically what I did with this is I created an animation from it. So if I go to Filters, Animation, Playback, and I hit the play button here, you'll see this is what our animation looks like. So this is a fictitious like baking company or muffin company. And so we have the muffin fading in here, and then we have the name of the company, and then we have a little tagline here, and then we have a button. And so I'm going to close that out, and I'm going to show you guys how to create all of that from scratch. So I'm going to start by going to File, New, and I'm going to go with 300 by 600 for my width and height. You can just change the resolution to 72. And precision you could set to 8-bit integer. If you set it any higher than that, when you try to export this as a GIF, it's not going to work. So set that to 8-bit integer as the precision and click OK. Next, I'm going to grab my main background color, which is going to be like this greenish turquoise color, and you can copy my HTML notation here, and I'll click OK. And I'm just going to fill this in using the bucket fill tool. And so this is our background layer. You can keep it named background for now. Next, I want to import the photo of the muffin, and I downloaded this photo on Pixabay, so I'll just go to File, Open and Recent in my case because I've opened this recently, but you guys can go to File, Open after you've downloaded it. And of course, I'll include a link to the image download in the description. You can see up here I downloaded the 640 by 425 version, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to Edit, Copy, and I'm going to come over here and go to Edit, Paste. And that's going to paste this as a floating selection, so I'm just going to add this to its own new layer. And now I'm going to grab my Move tool, and I'm just going to position this so that the base here of the table, or the table that the muffin's sitting on, is still within our ad window here. And then I'm going to just position the muffin so it's basically centered on here. And now what I can do is grab my Crop tool, and I'm going to change the crop to current layer only. And what I'm going to do is just crop out all the excess from this image because we don't need all this stuff that's on the outside here. And so what I'll do is I'll come over here and I'll just click, and I'm going to try to stay inside the lines here, but I don't want to accidentally crop out any of the layers, so I can go a little bit outside, and then I'll just double click, and you'll see that'll shrink our layer to about the size of our boundary there. So next, because our image is basically the same color as this turquoise, which by the way, I got this turquoise color originally by opening up my foreground tool, and then I just used my eyedropper tool to grab one of the turquoise colors from within here, and that's why these two colors are so similar. So next what I want to do is cut out the background of the muffin here because there is a slight difference between this green and this green. And I'm going to do this using the Ken Brewer Paths tool, which is named after Ken Brewer, our Diamond Patreon supporter. And I'm going to zoom in here, and what I'll do is I'll create a path using this Paths tool, and I'm just cutting out all of the turquoise background here. I don't have to be really perfect on this just because it is going to be fairly low quality when it's exported to a GIF, but I do want to be pretty close, and you know, I don't want to do a sloppy job here. So I'm just going to go around, and I'm clicking and dragging to create curves here with my Paths tool. I have an entire tutorial dedicated to how to master the Paths tool, so definitely check that out. And I'm just going to quickly go around and just outline this muffin here. And then I'm going to come around the outside and just make sure that I connect this so we've got a closed loop. And I'm holding Control, by the way, to connect this last node we drew in the first one, or the anchor point. And then I can zoom in and just clean up some of these lines here. And I can do that using the handles. All right, so I'll zoom out using Control and my mouse wheel, and now we have the path surrounding the muffin here. So next thing I want to do is I want to get rid of the background. So to do that, what I will do is I will come over here to Selection from Path, and this is within my Paths tool options right here. So I'll hit that, and that'll create a selection around the muffin. Now what I want to do is add a layer mask. So I'm going to come over here, and I'm actually going to double click on this and rename this muffin. And then I'll right click and go to Add Layer Mask. And under Initialize Layer Mask 2, I'll choose Selection and I'll click Add. And that will mask out the background there. And so if I hit Control-Shift-A, that'll select none. And then I'll grab a different tool. And now you can see our muffin no longer has a background. So I'll use Control and zoom out a little bit. So I'll leave that there for now. We're going to work on the muffin layer in a little bit. But next what I'm going to do is create the Muffin Man logo. So I'll just grab my text tool here. And I'm just using a font called Gild Sans Ultra Bold. And you can find that using the font tool here. And so I'm going to set my color to black and click OK. So that is the text color here. And now I'll come up here and I'll type the first word, which is the. And then I'll put my caps lock key on and type muffin. And just make sure my text is selected here. Increase the size of that. Let's go with about right there. Grab my move tool. And I'll move this into place. And then I'll click with my text tool here. I just clicked on my composition to create a new text layer. And then I'll type in man. And I'll double click to select all the text in there. And we'll make this a little bit smaller than the top text. So I'll have it like that. And now what I want to do is I want to merge all these onto the same layer. So I'm going to right click and go to merge down right here. And I'll do that one more time, right click, merge down, and so all three of those text layers are now on a single layer. So next what I did was I added like a drop shadow to this, and I'm gonna change my color first to this purple color. You can, of course, copy my HTML notation, and I'll click OK. And I need to make this layer a little bit larger because if I try to add a long shadow to this, it's going to stop where my layer ends right here on this yellow dotted line. So I'm gonna go to Layer to image size, and that'll make that layer the size of the entire composition. And then I'll go to filters, lighten shadow, long shadow. And now we've got our long shadow here. And I can adjust this. I have my style set to finite. The angle is set to 45 degrees. And then I'm going to turn the length down a little bit. Let's go with like right there. And I have shadow plus image here, and I'll click OK. And so next what I want to do is I want to add my tagline text. So I'll grab my text tool one more time and click to create the text. And then I typed do you, and let me turn my caps lock key on. So do you know? And I'm just going to change the color of this text to white. And I'm going to increase the spacing here. So I'll just select all the text and let me increase the kerning. So I did like 3 or 4, I think. And I'll grab my move tool. And actually something that's useful here is I can add a guide to the middle of my composition so I can know that I'm aligning everything to the center of my composition. So what I can do is I can go to Image, Guides, New Guide by Percent, and I'll keep this set to 50%, and I'll change the direction to vertical and click OK. So that'll give us a vertical guide down the center. And then I'll just drag this, and you'll see there's a little crosshair there in the middle, and that allows me to align this to that center guide. And I'll move it up just a tiny bit. So lastly, before we do the animation part, we're going to create the button for this. So I'll create a new layer, and this is already named button, and I'll fill it with transparency, and I'll click OK. And now I'm just going to grab my rectangle select tool and draw a rectangle. I didn't really make this any particular size, I just drew it to fit in here. And then I can click and drag the selection area so that it snaps to my center guide there. And by the way, you see these lines going through. These are the guides that are placed within that area. So I could set this to center guides or no guides, or the original one I had, which was the diagonal lines here. I don't have that for any particular reason. That was just set that way already for some reason. So now I'm going to grab my bucket fill tool again, and I still have my purple selected, and making sure I'm on my button layer, I'll just fill this in with that purple, and I'll hit Control-Shift-A to deselect that. And then I'll grab my text tool, and I'll click on here with my caps lock key on. I'll just type indulge, which was the lettering I had in here, and then I'll double click to select all the text, and I'll change the color to white, and then I'll just increase the size of the font so it fits in the button a little bit better, and we'll put that right there. The last thing I did for the button, I'll click on the button layer. I went to Filters, Lighten Shadow, Long Shadow, and I'm going to change the color to white. Click OK. I'll change the angle to 90 so it's directly, behind or below the button, and then I'll just decrease the length of this like so. So now it looks more like a button, and I'll click OK. So now we need all the button elements on the same layer, so I'll do what I did before, and I'll right click, and I'll go to Merge Down, and that'll merge these all onto the button layer. And I want to decrease the size of my button layer, so I'll go to Layer, Crop to Content, and that'll crop my button size down so that it's only the size of the button. You can do the same with the Muffin Man logo, which, by the way, I'm going to name this Muffin Man logo. And then I'll rename this so it's easier, so I put DYK text. And I'll come back to the Muffin Man logo layer and go to Layer, Crop to Content, and that'll crop our content layer down. So before we move into the animation portion of this, I recommend saving this, so I'll hit Control S to save. And I'll just save this as Muffin Man Animation, and I'm saving it as a .xcf, so I'll hit Enter. And now if I hit Control S while I work, it'll automatically save it to that .xcf file. And the reason I want it as a .xcf, that is the native file type in GIMP, and so it's going to save this with all of the layers still intact. All right, so now what I want to do is set up my animation, and I'm going to grab my move tool and just move that guide out of the way. So as it stands right now, this is what our file looks like as an animation. So if I go to Filters, Animation, Playback, and I hit the play button, this is all it'll do. It'll just loop infinitely, and it loops very fast. So this is not super helpful. So what we need to do is we need to time that a little bit better, and we also need to determine how everything is sort of fading into this composition. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come over to my muffin layer, and I'm just going to right-click and apply the layer mask. That way, that layer mask that we drew on here is now just merged with our muffin, so it's all just in one spot. That's going to make it easier for the animation. The next thing I'm going to do is determine how long the GIF basically waits for the next layer to animate in. So as it stands right now, everything just takes like 3 milliseconds to animate in. The reason for that is that's just the default setting right now. But what I can actually do is I can tell GIMP that I want there to be more time in between each layer animation. And so basically I could say when it lands on this muffin layer, it takes another second until we bring in the Muffin Man logo right here layer. And then we wait another second until this layer comes in. And then we wait, let's say, 2 seconds until the button comes in. So the way to do that is we have to add what's called a layer comment. So all we have to do is we double click to rename the layer. Then I'll hit the space bar, and I'll type a parentheses, and then I'll type how long in milliseconds I want this to wait. So let's say 1,000 milliseconds, and no spaces, and then MS as the abbreviation. So that's telling me I want to wait 1 second until this muffin comes into play. And I'll just do that for this one too. So this one will wait 1 second, and then this one will have wait 1 second. And this text, like I said, will have it wait 2 seconds, so that's 2,000 milliseconds. And then if you want to follow the guidelines for Google AdWords, you have to make sure that the last frame stops, so this can't just be 1 second before it goes back to the next one. It has to wait a while. So right now we're at 2, 3, 4, 5 seconds total. AdWords says the ad has to be less than 30 seconds. So if this is 5 seconds total, we have 25 seconds to spare. But we'll just make this 10 seconds, so we'll have it be 10,000 milliseconds, and we'll hit Enter. So now if I preview the animation, I'll go to Filters, Animation, Playback, and I'll hit play. You'll see there's some time in between each animation now, and it'll wait 10 seconds on this final one. If you want to make it the full 30 seconds, just type 25,000 milliseconds here on the end. But as I said, that waits 10 seconds, so 1 second there, 1 second there, 1 there, 1 there, or 2 here for this one, and then 10 after the final button animates in. But the next thing I want to do, I don't want these to just flash in like that one at a time. I want the muffin to actually fade in, and that way it's just a little bit more dynamic. So what I'm going to do is I'll close this out, There is an animation feature built into GIMP called blend, and that's supposed to just allow every frame to sort of blend into one another, and it just is supposed to cause the frames to fade into one another. I haven't been able to get that to work as intended, so I'm just going to do it the way that I figured it out. And so how I did it was basically I duplicated this muffin layer. So again, we're making the muffin fade in, and so I'll duplicate this 5 times. And I'm going to move the original to the top, and I'm just going to rename these by the frames they are. So if this is muffin frame 1, this will be frame 2, and so on. All right, so we've got 5 different frames, and all of these are going to act as the animations that cause the muffin to fade in. And so what I need to do is click on the first one here, and all of these right now have an opacity of 100. So there's no transparency on these in terms of the muffin, and they all are just 100%. But what I need to do is I need to tone these down and have them gradually fade in, so they're going to gradually get more opaque. And so I'm going to start with this first one being at 20% transparency. And I'm just going to move my way up here. This one will be 40. This one will be 60. We'll go 80 here. And you can either make this 5th one 100, or you can make it like 90, so it's almost all the way faded in. And then this layer, of course, will be 100. All right, so now let's play that back and see what it looks like. So we'll go to Filters, Animation, Playback, and I'll hit the play button. And so as you can see, the muffin faded in there first before everything else came in, and then everything else sort of followed suit. So you can do that same effect to all the other layers if you want, and just have everything fade in. It'll take you a little bit more work, but it will create a really cool result. So let me exit out of that, and let's export this as a GIF now, or a GIF. And I'll go to File, Export As, and by the way, I'm just going to call it a GIF. That's just what I call it. I know there's some debate online as to how it's pronounced, but I'm going to go with GIF. And I'm saving this as a GIF, you'll see here, so I just typed GIF at the end of this. And I'll hit export. First, right now, there is that muffin layer, and that is going outside of the layer that we created, or the composition that we created. So you'll see this layer goes a little bit beyond that. So this is saying that you're not allowed to have that. And so I'll just hit crop, and that'll crop everything inside that area. Make sure you check this option for as animation. That's going to make sure your GIF is an animation when you save it. If you want the animation to just continue looping forever, you can check this option. I'm going to leave that off for now. Then you have the delay between frames where unspecified option, and that was what I was talking about earlier. So anytime you don't say in your layer comment how long you want this to delay between frames, so here we're waiting a second. Here we do not have any specification as to how long to wait before the next frame, and then here we have it specified again. So these are the only unspecified frames. So what this is saying is that it's going to wait 300 milliseconds in between all of these unspecified frames. So it'll take 300 seconds to go from frame 1 to 2, and then 3, 4, 5, and then it'll stop for a full second on the muffin layer here. And then I just have the frame disposal where unspecified is set to cumulative layers so that all of the layers combine. And I'll just hit export. And here is the file right here. Right now this is 281 kilobytes. That is above what Google AdWords allows for your ads. It has to be with below 150 kilobytes. But let's just see how this animation looks right now. So you'll notice that when this plays, it doesn't actually fade in. It just pops up as the muffin, and then everything else comes in. And the reason that happens is because GIFs don't actually know how to handle the transparency if you don't have anything behind it. So it's just causing this to pop up as a 100% opaque muffin right off the bat. So what I need to do is I need to come back here, and all these muffin layers I need to add a background behind. So what we're gonna do is I'm gonna duplicate this once, and I'm just gonna take off this designation here to have it wait. So this is the first background copy. So we need 5 of these. So I'll duplicate this 4 more times. And we need to put one behind each of these muffin layers that has transparency to it. So each of these now has a background behind it. And now I need to merge all these. So I'll right click on the top muffin frame 5, and I'll click merge down. And now this is the muffin frame 5. So I'll rename this So this still has a semi-transparent muffin on it, but now it just has a background layer behind it. And I'll do the same here. So I'll merge this down, change it to muffin frame 4. And I'll just go down the line. All right, so now we have all of these transparent layers, and now they all have a background behind them. So now I'll try to export this again. So I'll just go to File and Export to muffinmananimation.gif, and I'll hit the crop option again. And then I'll pull up the file location, and let's just refresh this. So you'll see the size is a little bit lower now, and I'm just going to click on this. And so now you'll see it's causing this to fade in. So now it's working a little bit more properly. But we're not quite done with this, so we've still got a tweak we've got to do because this still is not under 150 kilobytes, which is the required size for an AdWords ad. So what we're going to do is we're going to come back to our composition now, and I'm actually going to delete one of these frames because we don't need all 5 of these frames. So I'll just delete this 5th frame here, and that'll create some room. And then another thing we can do to compress this or just optimize this is go to Filters, Animation, Optimize for GIF. And what that's going to do is it's going to put our composition on a totally new layer, or a totally new composition. And so here we have all of our different layers from our other composition, but now they've been combined onto this. You'll see that all of the layers now say combine right here. And so this hopefully will reduce the size of our overall GIF. And so let's see if we made it under the allotted size. So I'll go to File, Export As, and let's just name this one Muffin Man Optimized, and actually Muffin Man Animation Optimized, and I'll hit Enter. And I'm going to uncheck the interlace and GIF comment options because those will just add to our file type, and I'll hit Export. And now we'll come over here, refresh, and here you'll see that our animation is now right at 150 kilobytes. And so I'll click on this and see how this looks. And so there we have the fade in, and we have the logo come in, and then we have the 2 seconds that it waits on this one, and then the button enters the animation. So you should be able to upload that into AdWords as an animated GIF and run that in your Google AdWords campaigns. All right, so that's it for this tutorial. Hopefully you guys liked it. If you did, please subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/daviesmediadesign. You can also visit our website at daviesmediadesign.com. You can enroll in one of our live presentations via gimpschool.com. Or you can enroll in our GIMP photo editing course from beginner to pro photo retoucher on Udemy. And you can support us on Patreon and help our channel grow. I'll include that link as well as all the relevant links from this tutorial in the description of the video. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.